Hello, Alex Lafkus here. We are approaching Hendrickson season. So it's just before opener. And I was kind of thinking about this as I was talking to a buddy and explaining some of what I look for during a Hendrickson hatch or how I set myself up to have success during the Hendrickson hatch. And I was like, I guess I take it for granted that maybe I know some of this stuff and it might be worth doing this. So, a couple things to think about when you're going to look for Hendricksons. One, 90% of the time, you don't need to really be to the river before 2:30, and a lot of times it's over by 5:30. There's about 2 evenings a year you'll get a spinner fall. But just, the way our weather typically is, it's a afternoon, right when water temps peak, and then it kind of dies quick as it starts cooling off. Hendricksons are an interesting bug, just basically based on the time of year they hatch, where you do lose a lot of the spinners in the morning. Most of the nights there's no spinner fall. I mean, it takes the perfect night. There's probably one or two nights of spinners in the evening. More often than not, they'll fall during the hatch just because air temp, humidity, everything is good. Or if you get a day that it warms up quick in the morning, you'll get a spinner fall in the morning. That happens a lot. We lose a lot of Hendrickson spinners during the morning when nobody's out there, which is kind of cool if you happen to be right there and be able to take advantage of it. Um, but our weather does not turn consistent, so most of your spinner falls are a little bit later. But what you want to look for to hit a spinner fall is one, you need hatches for a few days without big spinner dumps to actually get a buildup of bugs. Then I always look at the hourly forecast. And in order to hit an evening spinner fall, 90% of the time, you want 60-degree weather right at sunset. If you get 60, and this goes for all hatches, 60 degrees at sunset, that means your evening rise right at last light should be peak. A lot of Hendricksons will spit here, spit there, fall in the morning just because we don't have that type of consistent weather. So it's a little harder to predict. But as you get a little later into the dry fly season, sulfurs, light hennies, drakes, that's what you're really looking for. 60 degrees right at night. Right when your hourly goes from sunlight to dark. If you're at 60, you usually get a good spinner fall. The other thing that goes into that is, do you have a buildup of bugs? Any of those sporadic hatching bugs like light hennies, March browns, stuff that you don't get huge hatches of. If you've had a few cooler days, 2 or 3 in a row, and then you get one warm evening, that's the night to be there. And then typically your next night isn't great. This is a big reason why I kind of quit doing dry fly trips. It's such a shot in the dark to be able to hit it and have good fishing that you end up with more bad nights than good nights, and it's tough because a lot of times the midday doesn't fish as well. Regardless, doesn't matter. That's kind of a mayfly hatch in general, not just Hendrickson's, but that's kind of how it works trying to hit spinner falls. Um, Hendricksons are clingers, obviously. The mayfly nymph sits in, I would say, medium grade riffles. It seems like Hendricksons and Isonychias tend to come out of the same type of riffles, so it must be something about the amount of dissolved oxygen, the volume in there, something like that produces the same flies. That's what gets tricky. I used to guide Mayo a lot, and there's like there's like maybe one good Hendrickson riffle per mile that really produces bugs. So when you get into a situation where there's not a huge hatch, there's 5, 6, 7 really good spots within those handful, with all combined between all those riffles that'll produce enough bugs to get them. A lot of times Hendrickson's is an hour a rise, hour and a half, sometimes it's 45 minutes. So if you're not right on your fish when that starts, you can have issues finding fish. It does sound like I kind of quit doing the Hendrickson thing 5, 6 years ago, maybe longer, as boat traffic increased. It sounds like there's a few more bugs than there were. It seemed like we had very few bugs for a while on the Asable Manistee, and now it seems like apparently there's a few more. I don't know, I'm not out there every day, but just from talking to people who are. So you're looking for those riffles. And I usually look for kind of slower water either in, surrounding, or just downstream of those good riffles. Back eddies in those riffles, especially because this time of year water's a little higher, so the fish aren't out in the mid river as much. They're pinned in back eddies. So you're really looking for fish just sticking a snout out in a little dead spot. And look how the riffle forms. A lot of times, like, you got a big riffle and then it kicks into a bubble line. Man, when you're fishing a hatch and there's not a ton of bugs, you better be in one of the main soup lines in order to find fish rising. A spinner fall, those things kind of dump and go everywhere. If you're in a light hatch, it's really going to be an outside bend where everything is collected to, especially in a lighter hatch where they collect to an outside bend, collect in a back eddy. That's the only place there's enough bugs to get those fish going, and to keep them in a rhythm and to get them to rise a little longer in the day. So I'm looking for back eddies, or the shallower flat water downstream of those riffles. That's better during a really heavy hatch, spinner fall, that type of thing. During a light hatch, I want to be hitting the main soup lines, tailing out of a riffle, somewhere where it pushes all of the river into one side corner, small area that will concentrate those flies. That'll help you find more flies hatching at a time during a short hatch, which provides better opportunity to draw good fish up for you to be able to find. Um, the days of cruising and finding a big one just sucking everything down, and I don't see that as much. More of this today, my last experience, is going to a spot, dropping anchor, and really watching it. And we all want to get in the boat, we all want to go. Man, a lot of times just sitting in one spot, whether it's wade fishing or whatever, and really watching that good, highly productive area is more effective. Especially if you've got, a lot of bugs hatching in a certain area, sitting and watching that area and trying to find the better fish in there can be more productive than just floating and looking. A lot of times those big fish, if you were to sit in a good spot for an entire hatch, a lot of times you'll hear like a big fish feed once and you're like, oh, sweet, that's a big one, and never hear them again. A lot of times during a hatch situation, they'll go poof, and then they'll just settle in and start sipping. So, to be there for 45 minutes, it might allow you to mark them on his first rise and then be able to find them, get in position, catch fish. I see that a lot. I think people, they're sitting and watching and waiting and being patient, observant, looking in back eddies. You see a small sip in a back eddy, you want to watch it a couple times. Every once in a while, it'll just be sip, sip, sip. You're not sure what it is, not sure what it is. And the next time you see a snout come out and eat it, that's going to be like, okay, that's the fish I want to catch. Game on. Obviously, like most dry fly fishing, kind of lower water is better. Right after a rain, an influx of dirty water is going to be trickier. Um, it has nothing more to do with the fact that the fish's urgency to feed is not as high. They just got fed by crawlers, minnows, whatever they're eating. So they're not as starved, which makes them less apt to rise. Obviously, yes, they rise, but would you want to stick your nose out of the water to grab something, or sit in the bottom and eat a night crawler that comes into your face? It's safer for them to do the drift feeding. So the further removed you are from a big rain event or a big washout of meat, crawlers, all of that stuff, typically the better your rise will be. As far as blind fishing goes, blind fishing is something that I don't do on the big rivers really at all, but like up on the upper Asable, areas like that. A lot of times going into your Hendrickson hatch, the fishing isn't great. Like the morning before, whatever, it's nymph fishing time. You should be fishing, obviously like the Hendrickson type nymphs. You might get a spit of blueing olives and whatnot beforehand. After the hatch, the blind fishing tends to be better. And that's when I will tie on like a parachute or something along those lines. Just cover water, give them a target. When there's less bugs out there, the fish that are looking will tend to suck them in. During the hatch, I'm going really small and really, you want it to look like a piece of lint on the water. If it stands out to you, it's not right. Because if you watch those fish rise, they're just sipping things you'll never see on top of the water. Your fly needs to match that type of look, to where it's like you don't really see it on the water. In order for those fish to feed well on it, I think the parachute stuff is kind of, it's great for anglers, great for the fish too, because they don't want to eat it, most of them, especially the bigger fish. So as you can see, with a lot of my Hendrickson patterns, they're really dull, Can't see much. A lot of piece of lint. No wings that are very obvious. Some wrap tackle spinners to the far left, the old Regans. You know, the egg laying seems to work. Who knows if it matters or not. Some loop wing emergers in the center. A couple on a curved hook, couple on a straight hook. Very dull wings, not much material on them. And then far right are some kind of floating nymph-like things. Comparadon, Quigley cripple type thing, and a Comparadon, one natural deer hair wing parachute. Dull. You want it to blend. If it stands out, it doesn't seem to work as well. What I would say to help you find your fly when you are casting a Hendrickson that you can't see on the water is don't look for it once it hits the water. It's going to get lost in the bubbles. Typically what I do is I make my soft, delicate cast. This is where a lot of people fail too. They're hitting the water like they're streamer fishing or something. That is just not what you want. It needs to stop high and parachute down. So if you're doing that, you basically what it is in your cast, you're going to cast it straight so that the energy of your cast and in your line extends out and leaves straight. And sometimes you want it to even shock a little, because then it'll just fall slowly down to the water. It'll give you a little bit of slack in there that'll help provide the good dead drift. That's when I look for my fly. I try to find it falling out of the sky, and then if I can't see it on the water, I can kind of just assume based on pace of current, where about it fell, where it is. So it's not looking for it on the water. I can't see my fly. No, you're not gonna. You see it fall to the water, and then you can kind of track the general area and know if you're in the ballpark. It's not foolproof. You'll miss fish. It'll not eat your fly and you'll set the hook, blah, whatever. But it's better than having no clue. So the casting thing is big, up high, let it fall. I'm typically a 9-foot 4X guy in a smaller river. That way I can add 5 if I need. Big rivers, a lot of times I'll take a 9-foot 3 and add 2 feet of 4X. And that way I'll get, you know, a little bit. I need that length. I like that length. 10, 11, 12, whatever. As long as you can cast it, fish it, it's fine. The other thing I'll add is typically when I'm fishing those, I want that fly when it hits, like if I'm fishing a back eddy, boom, you got it. Like it's a reach cast. It's kind of you're throwing an aerial men in it to get it taken care of before it falls in the back eddy. If I'm fishing long distance to a fish feeding more on a flat, it's going to be big cast, kind of mend it right when it hits so that fly does not move once it's on the water. If you're fishing a bigger river where fish are sitting in the flats, you got to understand they're sitting a lot of times 4 feet down. So now their cone of vision is absolutely huge. So if you mend it and that fly moves, dude, they're not going to touch it. They know that's not right. Or it's a fly scooting away or whatever it is. So you want to be able to throw it out there, get it all taken care of, and then just feed line, feed line, feed line, so that you can continue that drift over their head without that fly moving. If that fly moves, it's not going to eat it. This is not easy. Doing this correctly is hard. That's part of the reason I quit guiding it, is it's just so hard, and so few people can actually do it correctly. It's hard to have success. That being said, it is a very fun hatch to fish. Some of this stuff should help you when you go out to do the Hendricksons. Think about these things. Think about little mini flies you can't see. Think about how are you approaching not only with your cast towards the fish, but how are you getting into position on your fish? They can't know you're there in order for you to catch them in the first couple casts, which allows you to move to the next fish to catch a few fish during the hatch versus catching one fish. So anyway, hope that stuff helped. I'm going to be doing a few more of these. Hopefully I'll actually get out fishing before long too. Like, subscribe, helps keep me motivated. Motivation lacks sometimes. I appreciate that, and I appreciate any feedback. If you have any questions, go ahead, leave them in the comments, and I'm really good about getting back to them. So anyway, appreciate it. Hope some of that stuff will get you ready for opening weekend. Bugs are coming. It's next handful of days this weekend. Next 10 days to 2 weeks is going to be the deal up in the grayling areas. Thanks.